I've driven a lot of cars on my channel. New cars, luxury cars, exotic cars, stainless steel appliances. It doesn't matter what kind of car I've driven, but when it comes down to it, this M5, this 21-year-old car, is still one of the best handling cars that I've ever driven. What a combination of 400 horsepower V8, six-speed manual, and unfiltered raw driving experience. If you just want to have fun driving, you can't do a whole lot better than this E39 M5. But enjoying these old BMWs also means that things aren't always going to be perfect with this car. It just so happens that I had a few problems on this that I had to take care of. This binder contains all of the previous maintenance records on this M5. I had to recently add another page to this binder. Up until a few weeks ago, the only money that I put into this E39 were the front two tires at $600 and $500 getting the paint corrected and ceramic coating put on. The ceramic coating I could have avoided, but with a car like this, I just wanted it to look as good as it can for being 21 years old. I'm glad I did it though, because you have to admit, it looks pretty nice, don't you think? As you can see, it's been raining, and the nice thing about ceramic coating is the water just beads right off. Besides those two things, I hadn't really had to spend any money up until the dreaded service engine light came on the other day. Being that this car is a couple decades old, of course I didn't take it to a dealer. I found a local shop that specializes in these E39 M5s. They took a look at it, and here was the problem. They saw some faults for secondary air, cat efficiency, and crank sensor. And what they found was a hole in the exhaust. This car has aftermarket Eisenman exhaust, and in the welding process, somehow a hole remained. According to the BMW shop, I can get that fixed at a muffler shop. They couldn't do it, unfortunately, but it seems like a small problem to take care of. And if I do that, then I shouldn't have any more problems with the check engine light. I did a pre-purchase inspection on this car, and they didn't find that hole. I wish they would have, because then I could have negotiated on the price. But these are the kinds of risks that you have to deal with, not just with the previous owner and who you're buying it from, but anytime there's modifications done, you just never know what kind of problem could exist. Luckily, it's not a big thing to fix, and it cost me $200 at the shop to get it looked at and diagnosed. The other problem I needed to get looked at was at high speeds, there's some kind of weird whining noise that came from the dash. Unfortunately, I don't have it on video, but it was this ear-piercing noise that I had to get addressed, and it only happened at 70 or 80 miles an hour, and it felt like it was coming somewhere around the dash area. It turns out that the culprit was actually this windshield trim that was starting to go bad. So they charged me $300 to fix it. They did warn me though that there was a slight risk that the windshield could crack as a result of doing that, but then they also said it's pretty low. In the last 20 years that they've been doing this, they only saw 1 or 2 cases where the windshield cracked. Luckily though, windshield's still intact. I'm good to go. I'm happy to report that I can finally now drive this thing in peace above 70 miles an hour. The reason I didn't catch it until recently is because I rarely drive this thing on the freeways. This car really shines when you're tackling the twisties, so I'm always on the hunt looking for the craziest turns just so I can squeeze the enjoyment out of driving this car. Also, since the car was in the shop anyway, I had them do an oil change. Another $200. In addition to the oil change, I also had to do a brake fluid flush because it turns out that the brake fluid was really dirty. So with all the work that was done, here's where we ended up. Oil change $190.83. The diagnosis of the check engine light $200. $80 to figure out what was generating the high-pitched noise from the dash. $126.43 for the brake fluid flush. Finally, for the actual trim repair around the windshield, $314.45. Grand total of $959.87. Besides all the issues the mechanics found and worked on, I'm glad that everything else works on this car. The hood struts are still functional, very important. Trunk lid still works. Rear window shade is still functional. Most importantly, let's check to make sure the car still starts. Yes. If the car doesn't start, I'm in a lot of trouble. With the $959 spent, at least I now have peace of mind. Altogether, the total bill was almost $1,000, which is a lot of money, but this is an M5 after all, so it's not going to be cheap to maintain. $1,000 in 6 months isn't too bad, and I'm gonna budget additional money to keep this thing running strong because it's worth it when it comes to enjoying this car. When it comes to owning these older high-performance cars, especially these older M cars, it's so important to put in the money because if you ignore these maintenance items, these things will turn into huge repair bills down the road. These cars are not going to be hassle-free and very easy or cheap to maintain. You have to put in the money and the time. But it's worth it because no modern computer on wheels or anything that's being built today will come close to giving you a driving experience quite like this E39 M5. All in all, I got pretty lucky with this M5. It's a good example of one. It's clean, it's solid, it drives really strong, and every time I get inside it, doesn't matter what kind of a day I had, this thing always puts a smile on my face. So in the 6 months that I've owned this car, I've spent $600 on tires, $500 on ceramic coating, and almost $1,000 in repairs that I just talked about. But I'm gonna leave out ceramic coating because I didn't really need to do that. It's just a cosmetic thing. Without that, it was $1,600 for all of the maintenance items. Now, if I keep this car for another 6 months, I can expect to spend somewhere around that number, maybe less, maybe a little bit more. But then if you think about it, spending a few $1,000s to enjoy a car like this isn't really that bad. Because if you buy this car at a good price and you sell it at a good price, you're not going to really lose anything in depreciation. And if you get lucky, if it's a really good condition M5, you might even make some money on it. So all you're really paying for is maintenance costs. And if you do things yourself, you can save the money and not have to spend as much as I did. So when it comes down to it, spending a few $100s a month to enjoy a 6-speed V8 is a pretty good deal in my mind.